Hey everybody, it's Nina Hart, President of the National Nurses in Business Association, and I have a surprise guest today, and I'm super excited to welcome my really good friend and a credible businesswoman, Teresa Sanderson, and she is the founder of the Thriving Nurse Network community and the Nurses Feed Their Young movement, two really, really powerful spaces for nurses, both in business and just in life that I'm proud to be a part of and support. And so I am super, super happy to have you on today. And I'll be very honest, is when I thought of this topic came to my mind. You were the next thought that I had. So I knew right away that you were the person who I needed to talk about this with. And I think we've talked about this before. We've been business buds and friends and accountability partners for 4 years now. So I'm sure this has come up in other capacities, but never this way for the NNBA. And so, considering that you're sharing your own personal story this year at the NNBA, I thought it just made a lot of sense to talk about it here.
I love that. And I can't thank you enough, Nina, just for the opportunity, because I believe that, my story is one that I hope will give a lot of nurses hope in their own journey, whether they're staying in clinical nursing or choosing the entrepreneurial path. It's just, that one thing doesn't have to define you. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
No problem. One of the things I hear most from nurses, and this, I feel like this is one of those things that's either like one really, really far to the left or really, really far to the right. Nurses either hate selling and avoid it like the plague, and selling is like the thing they believe is holding them back from business, or they're out there pushing, 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 trying to make money, and they're selling, 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 but they're not giving any value. They're not serving. They're not showing up in a way that's authentic. They're just, I got to make this work. And I don't mean that in a critical way. I mean that in a way that they just don't know how to really sell in a way that attracts people to them instead of pushes people away from them sometimes. And so it can be very like either really
Yeah,
strong this way or the other.
exactly. And I hear the same thing from nurses all the time. It's just, I hate selling. I hate sales. I hate selling. It feels sleazy. I don't know how to, find my clients. People are always telling me, where do I find my clients? And I really love to switch or flip the script on that and say, why not attract your clients instead and
Where
have them
can your
come to
clients find
you?
you? Yeah.
Yeah. That is such a better space to be in. And it's so much more life giving because when people land in your email box, when they find you on social media because of a blog post that you created or a video that you shared or a lead magnet that they downloaded, they're saying, when they land in your email box, they're saying, I value what you have. I value what you have. I resonate with your content. So, you know what? They're your ideal client. They're your ideal client. And instead of me hunting for them, guess what? They're already looking for you. So you just need to get yourself out there.
Some of this I think also, and I totally agree with what you're saying, may have to do more with messaging yourself than anything, messaging yourself in a way that speaks really clearly to them to know like, oh wait, this is my person. This is who I'm supposed to be following. This is who I'm supposed to be asking for help. So I hear a lot of like messaging, but also just showing up. What do you, I guess, how have you learned how to do this in a way? Because I know you well, and I know you're very authentic and true to yourself, and you know me well. That's one of my number one values is authenticity. So,
Yeah.
how have you learned over time? The last 5 years, I know for sure how
Yep.
to do this in a way that you feel good about, that doesn't feel salesy. And I know you have a couple methodologies. I figured you'll bring some of those up to share as well. But I just wanted to
Yeah.
see if you had any like advice for those who are starting and who are either feel really uncomfortable selling or are already selling really strongly and don't understand why their messaging isn't converting.
Right. Love that. Love that. So really good stuff in that question. And I think one of the things we all have to get beyond so that sales doesn't feel weird is we've got to get beyond first the imposter syndrome. The idea that we need
Mm.
another certification, another degree, another thing behind our name to be big enough or good enough or suitable enough to be an entrepreneur. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I love speaking on that because for me personally, I'm an associate degree RN. And while do I have I aspired for more education or for higher education? Yes, I have, but I've just chosen to develop myself personally and professionally rather than pursue a different career path. Because in all honesty, peeps, I have never seen the real payoff in that for nurses, and so that's just me speaking very
No,
candidly from the truth here. But yeah, I've just never really seen that play out, and so get beyond imposter syndrome, and from there, own your value, own your worth, but then show up with value. You already have inherent value and inherent worth. We've all put in years, decades, sometimes of experience in nursing and learning what our ideal clients need, right? So then just comes the task of how do I show up as a value added partner and give people value before they ever spend a dime with me, before they ever spend a dime. And so this does two things, right, Nina? I mean, when you show up consistently, because people may watch you for a year or two before they ever decide to open their wallet. Okay. So if you quit showing up after 3 months and saying, hey, nobody's listening, guess what? You proved them right. They were right to wait because you weren't going to be around 6 months later. Okay. So staying in it for the long haul, committing to getting that messaging right, and just, being available for people for the long haul, that's what your ideal clients are going to want and need. So that consistency is going to be really important. Getting clear on your messaging is going to be important, but also showing up with value, helping and supporting people before they ever invest with you.
yeah,
Nothing, there truly is. I think we've talked about this too, Nina. There really is no such thing as overnight success.
yeah.
What looks like overnight success is something that's been quietly percolating, probably for years beneath the surface and below anybody's radar. And then all of a sudden, poof, it takes off and ignites. That's what real overnight success is. It's consistency. And, all of us recognize that money is important. Money is important. I mean, I have a thing I say, no money, no mission. You can't do anything if you don't have any money. But we can't come at business and sales and make it about us. It has to be about our client first and foremost. And that's where the abundance comes from.
I love that. I love that you went there, especially with the getting rid of imposter syndrome, because really what imposter syndrome boils down to, my favorite topic ever now, is that mindset piece of lack. I lack the fundamental characteristics of success. I lack that. And that's where that is coming from, that imposter syndrome. And I think when we feed that, that grows, right? And
Yeah.
so one of the most common questions I see everywhere is, should I get my DNP? Should I get my master's? Should
Yeah.
I, and I even see consulting questions a lot that say, like, I can't find a good certificate on consulting. And how can I do it if I'm not certified? And I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, you can go open a gas station today. There's no certification for that, right? You could open a coffee shop. You could open a bookstore. Like,
Yeah.
I I think there might be something about healthcare's structure or nursing's
Mhm.
um, laws and regs and rules that tells us that we have to meet some invisible standard that doesn't exist, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yep.
that we judge business owners and operators by some standard that we don't, for some reason, think as nurses we automatically meet. Um,
Right.
which is frustrating and kind of sad, because it's like, if you've ever had a conversation with someone and you said something that was completely normal to you and it blew their mind, like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that sounds like you have a vitamin B deficiency, because you just know that, right? And they're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wait, what? Like, how do you know that? If you've ever had a conversation where you say something that just blows someone's mind, you had that knowledge and you just assumed they did too, right? You just said it
Right.
very nonchalant, like you just assume everyone has this knowledge that we have, and that's not true. So it's not
Yep.
about getting more and more and more knowledge and more
Mhm.
on our resume. It's
Right.
about starting where you're at to what exactly to your point of like just showing up very authentically and saying, like, I think I have some value to add to this. And then on the
Mhm.
messaging piece, I just have to say, like, if you aren't sure if your messaging is hitting and you're not getting those inboxes that Teresa's talking about,
Yep.
start listening to what people are saying. You might not be listening. You might be trying to put out there what you want them to have, and they're not ready for
Yep.
that. I see
Yep.
a lot of messaging that talks about like um, all the details of coaching programs, and no one cares. No one cares.
Right.
Like, well, if I don't get 3 calls a month, I'm not signing up, right? Like, that's
Right.
not what people care about.
Hmm.
So, if your messaging
Hmm.
isn't hitting, you might need to really start listening to what people
Right.
are asking for and what are they really asking for, and being in the places where you can provide value.
Absolutely, absolutely. And anymore, a couple things. I would backtrack just a little on the whole
Yeah.
education thing because I really believe that it's important for nurses to really consider, do you need that additional education to start the business that you have on your heart and mind to start? If for me as an associate degree RN, let's say I wanted to, be a hospice nurse practitioner provider, visit patients at home. Do I need that education in that situation? Yes, I absolutely do. To be able to hang out my shingle and say, this is what I do, is do home visits for terminally ill patients as a contractor for hospice agencies. Yes, I need that degree. Now, if I want to start a business that I did start, like business and marketing made easy for nurse entrepreneurs, or how do you become a CE provider? Then no, I use the information, the knowledge that I already have, and that's what is so important. And what I talk to nurses about all the time is turn what you already know into income. Don't go out there and get more education, invest in more debt, all of those kind of things without having a clear vision for, is that really what you need to perform in that role? If it is, by all means, chase it. But if it's not, just let it go and recognize that you are already enough.
Well, and I think
That's
what we
vitally
start
important.
looking at is we start looking at, well, what have I done that I could use? And for some reason, we default back to that resume and say, I've worked
Yeah.
10 years on the med surge floor. Well, you and 100,000 other nurses, like, what did you actually do on that med surge floor that made real change or that connected with people? Or maybe
Mhm.
it has nothing to do with your nursing experience, and you just have this story of this personal trauma or this personal failure. I've told my story about getting fired 100 times. I don't want to ruin
Yep.
your story, but you're going to share your story at the NNBA of building your
Yes.
own hospice and building a $1 million business and then
Yep.
having to start over, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So you know, I think sometimes we go to the wrong story, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
We go to the story that we try to use to impress people. And I think sometimes that's the opposite story that people need to hear. They need to hear the
Yeah.
story that we are just like them, that we've been through these things, and here's how it can turn around, or here's how it did turn around. Thanks,
Yeah.
Elaine. And it's like one of those things where it's like we're trying too hard a little bit, and so it's not really as authentic as it could be, because we're trying to share what we think people want to hear,
Yes.
and it's not really what people need to hear from us. And I'm guilty of this as well.
Hmm.
I'm sharing this because I'm guilty of this as well. It's
Right.
easy to default to.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Your voice needs to be authentically yours because your ideal clients are going to align with you. And your ideal client is typically probably you 3 or 4 years ago, before you
Yes.
found the answers, before you
Yes.
figured out all the things, before so somebody is running this race behind you, and how can you make the journey easier for the next person than what you had to experience to figure it all out? And so that's where the money comes in, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think it was Zig Ziglar that said all those years ago that the more people you help achieve their goals, the more of your own goals you will achieve. And it's absolutely true. But we have to be, I love what you said earlier too about, many times we're trying to deliver things that we think our clients need. And many times, not many times, all the time, what we need to be willing to do is give them what they want so that we can later give them what they need, because they're not where we envision them. In the beginning, they're not there. They are in the middle of a great struggle probably when they're looking for somebody like you to help them solve their problem. And so when you meet them there and give them what they need in that moment, then they can gradually take the next step, but it's not all, hey, sign up for my high ticket coaching so that
Yeah.
you'll move up to the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy. It
Right.
doesn't work like that.
Who cares? Yeah. So what about messaging to people who are in different places or maybe who have totally different personality types? Because one thing that I've noticed, and I know you've done a lot of work in this area,
Mhm,
is I could post 100 different things, and
mhm,
one person is gonna have this like moment with one of those things, and another
mhm.
person is gonna think that's trash. you know and then another person's
Yeah.
going to have a moment with something totally different that connects with them, that they feel like this one thing really spoke to me. So how do you kind of know how to message all these things to, if my audience is nurses,
Mhm,
that's a big audience, and there's male nurses, there's 50-year-old nurses,
mhm, mhm,
5-year-old nurses, there's nurses who
mhm,
are super motivated, and nurses who feel super lost. So
mhm.
I know you have some thoughts on this, and I know you have some
I do.
really good meat on this. So I wanted to kind of go
Yeah.
that way with the messaging.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's talk about it. And first and foremost, I think, you always hear the riches are in the niches, right? So
Mhm.
I'm going to encourage anybody who's out there as an entrepreneur or even just an aspiring or novice nurse entrepreneur, niche way down, so small that, you think, whoa, this is probably too small, and it's probably not.
Nurses who
Because
love
what happens is,
cats.
yeah, yes. And you know what? None of us is here designed and able to serve everybody, because as Nina said, everybody's got different personalities, everybody's got different priorities. And look at the age span, even of nurses, working nurses, probably young 20s to 65, 70 or plus, right? I've seen some really, 90-year-old nurses lately in the news. But I think it's really important to recognize, as you niche down, how old is your ideal client, and put a number on that. My ideal client is probably 45 to 55 years of age. Okay. That's who I work with. I am not a TikTok dancer. I am not that kind of
Come
social media
on.
influencer. Yeah, this is just me. Am I on TikTok? Yes, I am, but I'm on there as me.
Yeah.
And I don't change my messaging depending on the platform. So if that's something anybody's been worried about, just know, show up as you consistently all over the place. Um, but also, as you niche down, for me, I want just my simple example. I work with nurse entrepreneurs for business and marketing specifically, and I'm looking for my niche is, you are a nurse entrepreneur, probably 45 to 55 years old. You've started a business, you've created your LLC, you're doing a lot of marketing, you're getting no traction, and you have no sales, and you're frustrated and thinking that you might quit. That is, I mean, that just kind of describes my ideal client perfectly. And what I want to do is just help them understand how to get themselves out there. So I'm not looking for novice entrepreneurs who are, I need to set up my LLC, I need to do this. That's somebody else has that covered. I'm sure there are many people who have that covered. I want to work with this particular group of people. That's what I want to do. So it's kind of like, even if you think about elementary school teachers or any level of teacher, right? Some people, oh, I've always been a kindergarten teacher, right? They're not saying I teach kindergarten and high school math. That's not what they're saying. They're saying it's
Yeah.
kindergarten. That's what I do. So I think that's important. Um, can I dive into the personality different stuff?
Yes. I just want to piggyback on that really quick because
Mhm.
that was so good.
Sure.
So you named who they are, where they're at in their journey, and how they feel about their situation. So that
Yeah.
wasn't just like, oh, I serve 45 to 55-year-old women who are also
Right.
nurses. And that even there, that's two niches, right? I mean,
Yeah.
45 to 55-year-old women who are nurses. There's your three niches. Hypothetically,
Yeah.
you could say that's your niche, but you went so far as to
Mhm.
personalize where they are in their journey, how they
Hmm.
feel about where they are and what they
Yep.
want as an outcome. And I think that's really, really important to point out because I think that's missing a lot from
Hmm.
messaging.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think it's true. Everybody says, you got to know your avatar, and what happens is over time, you get really well familiar with your avatar,
yeah,
and yeah, but it's true. You need to know them well. But right now, I want to share with you the missing piece of the customer avatar, and that is the personality assessment, right?
yeah,
And so Nina knows that. Oh, I think it was about 3 years ago now. I mean, I could not sell to save my life. So I've been there, no money, no mission. That was me. And but I invested in a training program through Codebreaker Technologies and learned something called the bank methodology. And this is a 90-second personality assessment that is values based. And it is scientifically validated to predict buying behavior. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that there was a tool, a system, a strategy based on science, validated by science, that I could use to improve my income and impact up to 300%. Okay. And I have to tell you, I mean, Nina knows my story. I think it was 2022. I ended the year with $40,000 in income from my business. That was a hard year, and I'd made this decision to invest in this big thing. Trust me, I wasn't getting a salary at that time. So I invested in it, learned the bank methodology, applied it to all of my business systems and practices. And a year later, my income shot up to 230. The next year, 330. And so, it was a scientific tool. And as nurses, we know science. We can learn science, we can implement science. But this just transformed my business and also all of my relationships. So um, here's the thing: when there's somebody like you were saying, Nina, somebody who lands with your content and somebody who doesn't, somebody says, oh, that's just junk, or that's a lot of fluff, or whatever. It's personality. It is never personal, y'all. It is personality. So 4 different personality types. There's a blueprint, and the blueprint is, think of a policeman, a rule enforcer, maybe even a school teacher. These people are very risk averse. So if I'm selling to them, and this is going to be a real skim here, but if I'm selling to them, I need to be teaching them about why not doing business with me is more risky than doing business with me. See what I'm saying? I need to tell them about my warranties or guarantees or satisfaction, that I'm going to provide to them so that they know I don't have any risk. When I can minimize that risk, they'll be ready to buy. Okay. Action personality type. Oh my gosh, these people just want, what is it? What does it do? Where do I buy it? That's all they need to know. You can kill them with too much information. And I did that so often because I always wanted to tell everybody what I needed to know to buy something. That's how we show up in the world. But they'll tell you, you had me in the beginning, but then you kept talking. So, yeah. And then the knowledge personality type, this is very liberating, is that we cannot sell a knowledge personality type. They need to be able to review enough information and carefully consider the option, and ask questions and get questions answered so that to them the decision becomes a no brainer. They get there on their own and they say, oh my gosh, wow, it's a no brainer. And then they tell other friends. Once they have sold themselves, they'll do it. But that totally takes the weight off. So if you know who you're talking to, who you're selling to, or wanting to sell to, or want to help, because that's what it boils down to,
yeah,
the more you know about their personality, the better you can align with what they value. And you can save each other loads of time just by, showing up in the right language that's going to be meaningful for them so that they can understand it. The last personality type, I'll just mention it real quick. That's the nurturing personality type. And they are warm like the sun. They're so authentic and genuine. They love community. They're the biggest cheerleaders. They're organizing potlucks at work, all of that kind of thing. But to sell to them, they will want to help you meet a goal. So if you were ever to say, all the multi-level marketing people tell you, enroll people in your goal, right? That's only going to work with the nurturing personality. That I need one more sale to reach my goal. But the nurturing personality will sometimes make a purchase just to help you or support you. Also, they will be your most loyal and refer all of their friends to you. Okay, so just a few. That's the tip of the iceberg of something I've been studying for more than 3 years. But powerful, powerful strategy.
But it is really important to understand, even if you're like, okay, well, I don't know that. I haven't done that training. It's really important to understand that different people have different buying behaviors and different personalities and different approaches to the way they buy. So it's like
Yep,
you don't want to be speaking to everyone all the same way, right? And so not
exactly.
everyone is going to respond to a post that's like, I need one more person in my
Yeah.
coaching group, right? And the likeliness is that's going to turn off, your blueprint person who feels like
Hmm.
you don't care about their needs, right? And your
Yeah.
action person who wants to get it done, they want to know
Yeah.
what their goal is here and what,
Hmm.
how are they a piece of that, right?
Right.
So, and I
Yep.
have a very limited knowledge of this system, but I know enough
Yep.
to know that I have seen you have to um, make sure that you're not just selling in a way that says, here's what you get, A, B, C, D, because not everybody cares about that. And that's where I feel like your
Yes.
story comes in and is so powerful
Hmm.
because your story's going to hit a lot of those notes with those people who want to understand, oh, I've been there. I know what it feels like to lose my job. Oh, I've been there. I know what it feels like to not have the money to spend on something. She understands that I can't risk $5,000 to spend on a coaching package, right? Or she
Right.
understands that I don't have a job right now and I need something different. Or, I feel like that's where your story comes in and kind of brings everybody to the same playing field to get
Hmm.
that conversation started.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And again, when you know the type of information that people need, yes, it's called the bank methodology, Journeys with Jay. That's what it's called. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. But yeah, I think it's important to know they all have different motivations to buy. They all have fears of different things. And in the example you used just a minute ago, thinking about, oh, I need one more person to sign up in my coaching program for the knowledge personality type, that will make no logical sense to them. Why would I ever do something just to help? You know what I mean? That just makes no sense to them. No sense at all. Why would I invest this money maybe for something I don't need? So we have to really look at what motivates them. And so for a blueprint personality, they're going to want a proven system. They want to know, oh, somebody's gone before me. You've got credentials. You're traditional, in your appearance, kind of professional. You show up for a meeting early. That's a big thing for blueprints. The actions are going to want to see you in all the blame. They're going to want to know, how's this going to enhance my image when I do business with you? So some things like launching the Thriving Nurse Network, be one of the first of our business, partners to step up.
Yeah,
Oh, they
be a
want that
featured
visibility.
founder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They want that. Yeah, they want that. The knowledge personality type, they're, like I said, they're going to get there on their own. And our biggest job is just keep answering questions. I used to get really offended when people had just oodles and oodles and oodles of questions for me after we'd already had a consultation. Maybe we had a second consultation, still millions of questions coming in. But you know what? That's just their personality. When I answer all those questions, trust me, I'm going to the bank. Going to the bank with a deposit because I met them with what they needed. And the nurturing, the same thing. What charity do I contribute 10% of my profits to? They're going to be motivated to do business with companies who are doing good for other people,
Yeah.
and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, lots of cool things.
I feel like from the nurturing side, having both of us nurturers here on this stream here, I feel like one thing we do really well that works really well with using your story is not only do we share our story, which seems very vulnerable. It is vulnerable. It doesn't seem like it,
Hmm.
it is,
Hmm.
right? I share some things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I don't necessarily love to tell other people about myself, right? But
Hmm.
also I feel like we innately listen to other people's stories. We care about what's happened to
Hmm.
them. We care about what they've been through. And I think when you're talking about selling effectively, there's nothing more of a turnoff to me as a nurture person than someone who says, I told you you needed to have this, and I wanted to get on a call to tell you how much you need this, right? And it's like, well, you don't
Yeah.
care about what I
Yeah.
need. You haven't talked to me at all. You don't know my story. You don't know where I'm at. Where I'll get a Facebook message that will say, I
Yeah.
am a coach for nurses in business, and if you want to start a business, I am the coach for you. And when I reply to those, it's really hard to be nice, right? I'm like, do you, sometimes I have said like, do you know anything about me? Right? Like,
Yeah.
because if you knew anything at all about me, certainly you would
Yeah.
never send me that message. And I'm sure sometimes it's AI or a virtual assistant or somebody who just blasts out a bunch of cold messages. But this is damaging your story and your ability to sell to
Yeah.
me because now in the future, you will never sell anything to me. I am a kind of person who I remember that you didn't care enough to ask me, like,
Hmm.
hey, or to look at my profile and learn about me before you tried to pitch me something I don't need and could probably sell to you. Like I'm sure everybody's gotten that kind of
Exactly.
message where they get this unsolicited message and you feel like it's like a slap in the face, like, why would you just send me that? Like, I don't want that, like
Right.
this unwanted
Yes.
sales.
Hmm.
And I think
Hmm.
that's super damaging to you as a business, as a service provider, especially services. I don't
Yeah.
take I don't take retail that way. If you texted me a link and said, "Check out these shoes for nurses, for bedside nurses," I wouldn't reply back angrily. I'm not a bedside nurse, right? But
Right. Right.
for service providers, there is an
Yeah.
expectation of relationship building there. And
Hmm.
especially for, I hate these words, but especially for high ticket service providers
Hmm.
or high
Yeah.
value service providers, like the work that I do as a consultant, you don't ask someone to pay you ten to $50,000 without having a conversation and hearing what they need. You don't
Right.
tell them what they need, right?
Right.
And then say,
Right.
you need my help for this, and it is going to be $50,000. Pay me now. Here's a link to pay. It does
Yeah.
not happen. It does not
Doesn't
happen,
work.
right? So
Hmm.
you have to
Hmm.
have a real authentic process to achieve the
Hmm.
goal of helping someone see. And like you said, the steps in that process are showing up authentically, sharing value, putting yourself out there, speaking to their needs,
Yep.
understanding how they work, how they buy.
Hmm.
And you don't
Hmm.
necessarily
Yeah.
have to know every potential buyer's personality type to put content out there that appeals to different people.
Right.
Um, so I think that's super important to understand, especially the higher value you go, the higher revenue, higher buy-in you ask for.
Hmm.
There really is steps in between that can't be avoided in order to be successful with that sale.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's one thing that I've heard said before is that your business will never outgrow you. So, I mean, your development as an entrepreneur is ongoing. It is ongoing.
I love
Darren
that.
Hardy, an author I follow, he said, if you want to earn whatever amount of money you want to earn in a year, you need to be willing to invest 10% of that in your personal and professional development. So if you want $500,000, you better be ready to pony up $50,000 in your professional development that year. You need to become the person. You need to become the person who is capable of running that $500,000 business. Right? The
100%.
the $80,000 you is not going to be prepared to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got to keep going, keep growing and learning and developing. Because trust me, it's fun on the other side. It's scary sometimes to make those investments. Trust me, at $40,000 a
Yeah.
year when I made a big one,
Yeah.
it was scary. But
Yeah.
then I saw the proof in the pudding, man. And so just got to keep going.
I could not agree more with that. And I think, especially starting out, and especially if you're in that lack mindset and you have that belief system that this is all there is, or that you don't have what it takes and you're not really sure, and then you start showing up, and then maybe you think you might. It's really hard to invest in yourself when that's your mindset, and I think that's why I hammer
Yeah,
mindset so hard, because I was in that place. I'm in that place day to day. It just depends on the day, Teresa, right? Like
it happens.
it happens where it's like you fall back into that belief system that there's not enough, or that you're not doing enough, or that you're not good enough, or that you're not checking all the boxes, or that you don't have the
Mhm,
certificate or whatever.
mhm.
But I think that's why it's so important to consistently maintain that mindset journey, that professional development, that coaching, that mentoring. You know,
Yep.
I feel like coaching has been a little bit watered down because there's so much of it that people believe that like there's not that much value to it anymore. And
Mhm.
I disagree with that strongly. I think finding the right
Same.
coach is more important than ever now, and understanding what you want out of that relationship, because coaching is not meant to hand you the money, right? It's not a transaction
Right.
where I pay you $5,000 for coaching and then you give me $100,000 in business. That's not how
Yes.
coaching works.
Doesn't. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of
But
work.
speaking, it is, and you have to be willing to make the investment both financially and in the time and energy you put in. I've
Yeah.
got two clients that I'm coaching right now, and they're like polar opposites. One gal shows up every week and she's got everything done. She's ready to share her wins. She's ready to show me the work, show me everything that she's been up to. And the other guy's like, so tell me what's next. Like, how about
Yeah.
we finish? How about we finish all the things that are not completed yet? Because, I mean, it's up to you. This year is yours, but we don't get a redo. So just, yeah, you got to be willing to do the work
I
for
totally agree
sure.
with that. And I think we have this expectation of what we want to happen. And so we sometimes think that's going to happen by osmosis. I tell people, and they are shocked. The look of shock on people's faces when I said that I did a special offer and I had a coaching package for $3,500. This was a couple years ago, and
Hmm.
I had 6 people buy that package, and 3 of those people paid and never showed up to one call, never
Yep,
reached
it
out,
happens.
responded to an email, never showed up for one of their coaching sessions, and spent $3,500 on that. And as a service provider, I don't want that to happen. I want you to get your
Right.
money's worth. I want you to have your outcome. But I also can't go to your house and say, "Is this a good time for you?" Like,
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
I do think people need to be very aware that once you commit to that, there's follow through required, that it's not just going to be able to be something that you can expect to naturally occur. There's a lot of work there. And defaulting
Hmm.
back to that showing up, you're going to have to show up. There's no way around the showing up for this. If you
Yeah,
don't show up, then you should stay where you are. Really.
exactly.
There's no way
Exactly. And if you're not ready to commit, don't waste your money. Don't waste your money. Don't waste the coach's time. If you're wishy washy in your commitment, when you're ready to go full throttle and do the thing, that's the time that you
Yes.
need to, invest. Now, if you're still, yeah, and it's okay to be stuck. I don't want it to feel like I'm saying it's, you have to be ready to take action. Mm-mm.
Right.
A lot of times we do better. We can do more work incubating our ideas
Yeah.
about the business we may want to start than just shooting from the hip to start something. So, take your time. No one's the right time to make an investment in some coaching and training, but definitely do it because, what took me 10 years to figure out, I probably could have hired a coach who could have
Oh, for
helped me with
sure.
it in 6 months, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
So, but just think about that. So what is your time worth? What is your time worth? And on the retirement continuum, right? How much money do you need to be, you know, earning so that you can have that lifestyle, that retirement, all those things that we're all working toward, right? So
Yeah.
investing in a coach, if it shaves 10 years off of your time that you could be earning some really good income, man, that is well worth it. So,
And I think if you're not ready to share your story and you're not ready to show up, there's nothing wrong with that. Or if you're not ready to sell, but you want to start sharing your story, I think that's a great way to start. I always talk about starting for free, starting with the least
mhm,
possible resistance, whatever feels most aligned to you. So if you even just start kind of sharing what you've been through, or what you've learned, just for free, just out there, and see who starts
right.
following, see the questions they start asking you, see what the responses are. I think that's a really good place to start, even if you're not necessarily ready um, to share it all, or to be up on a national stage, or to um, sell something, a big package, right? Just start talking to people, having conversations like me and Teresa are having right now in private, and say,
Yep.
what's your deal? Here's my deal. And we had a lot of those conversations before either
Yes,
of
we
us being success in anything we were doing, right? But that's how you kind of build each
have.
other up. That's how you refine your story. That's how you understand what people need.
Yep.
So thank you
Hmm.
so much, Teresa. We went over today, which is great, and I love it. I knew we would, so I wasn't even gonna put a timer on it. But
Totally good.
tell you how much I appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experience. And I also wanted to just give you a couple, maybe 2 minutes to just talk about kind of what you're going to be sharing at the NNBA, because we really didn't go into that. But I really want to
Hmm.
encourage people, if you're interested in coming to the conference, we would love to see you there. Teresa will be there. I will be there.
Absolutely.
And she's going to be talking about this topic, specifically sharing the details of her story. And I don't want to spoil it, but I did want to kind of give them an idea of what to expect
Absolutely.
from your standpoint.
Absolutely. Well, I am just very excited. Thank you for having me here, Nina. And also, I'm looking forward to the NNBA conference. I am a frequent flyer at that conference. And if any of you are not NNBA members, and if you haven't been to the conference, you need to join us there this year, because this is where real nurse entrepreneurs show up who are ready to do the work and ready to move forward.
Yeah.
So, my story, what I'm going to be sharing about is the journey that I went through to start and launch my own hospice and growing it beyond my wildest dreams to $3 million in annual revenue, serving more patients than we ever imagined, increasing access to care, also, improving length of stay and all of those things. So it was a wonderful, wonderful experience that ended with me crashing and burning from major depression and burnout. I could not work for 3 years, was in the depths of depression, clawed my way back to recovery, and blessed to make it through to the other side. And now I'm experiencing again wonderful success, again beyond my wildest dreams, living a life that I love, and just able to have my mental health and well-being with me. And I think my story, again, I want it to be one that can give you hope. So if you've had a failure, I've been there. I've had a pretty darn big one. Pretty darn big one. If you struggle with maybe mental illness, depression, anxiety, stress, and you wonder maybe that's holding you back in your business, it doesn't have to. I want to be that hope for you. And if you're rebuilding, maybe you're like me, you've had a loss and you need to rebuild and start something new. Nina and I have both been there, but that's in my story as well. So I'm excited to share it all with you. I told Nina I'm sharing it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I hope it'll bless your life. So plan on being there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you for today. And just appreciate you making the time in your schedule for this, and sharing all your tidbits and wisdom. I hope that it helped everybody. And we will talk to you guys next Tuesday. So thanks so much for
That's
joining.